All right, Metaverse time. Is it all hype, or is this really the future?
Big question, right?
It is. We tried to get some answers, at
Right.
least a better picture for everyone, dug into a ton of research articles,
Oh, yeah.
even that Matthew Ball book, The Metaverse,
Mhm.
and how it will revolutionize everything.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's a good one. Really trying to get down to like the practical stuff here. What does it all mean for businesses, for regular folks, you know? So ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So first things first, I think a lot of people get tripped up just trying to understand what the metaverse even is.
It's tricky.
It is. It's not just about VR headsets and fancy graphics, right?
No, not at all.
It's bigger than that.
Much.
Much bigger. So how would you explain it? Like in a nutshell?
I think it's helpful to imagine the internet, but instead of just looking at websites, you're inside them. You're interacting with people, objects, experiences, all in this persistent digital space.
So it's like 3D internet.
Yeah, sort of, but it's more about the persistent part too. Like the world keeps going whether you're there or not.
Okay, so that's where it gets really interesting then. You can't just build that kind of persistent, immersive world overnight, right? There's got to be challenges.
Oh, absolutely. The book, it dives deep into some of these, one of the big ones. Interoperability.
Interoperability.
What's that? Basically, right now, most virtual worlds are like islands. You can't just seamlessly move between them, let alone take your digital stuff with you.
Oh, I see. Like imagine if you could wear your Fortnite skin to a business meeting in Zoom.
Exactly.
That would be wild. But I guess for that to work, all these different virtual worlds would need to be able to, what, talk to each other somehow.
Exactly. And there's no common language right now, no universal standards. It's like trying to get a PC and a Mac to just seamlessly share files back in the 90s.
Well, the dark ages.
Right. But if we can solve that, imagine the possibilities.
Okay, starting to see the potential here. But there was another big challenge the book talked about, persistence, right?
Oh, huge one. Think about those old video games where when you turned it off, everything reset.
Yeah, back to square one.
Right. The metaverse can't be like that. It needs to feel like a real place, one that remembers what you did, what you built, what you bought, everything. It needs to evolve and change based on everyone's interactions.
So it's got to have memory, like a collective digital history.
Precisely.
Okay, so that's persistence. What else?
Latency, massive hurdle. Imagine you're in a virtual meeting, but your avatar's all laggy, stuttering, freezing up.
Oh, yeah, that would kill the vibe.
Totally. And it wouldn't exactly inspire confidence in, say, metaverse business meetings.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So what do we need? Better internet.
Way better. Massive improvements in infrastructure, speed, bandwidth, the whole 9 yards. And then there's compute power.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The book talked about that. I feel like that's something most people wouldn't even think about.
It's crucial, though, because rendering these realistic virtual worlds, especially with millions of people in them, it takes insane amounts of computing power. Like, imagine streaming a Pixar movie, but you're inside the movie, interacting with it in real time.
That's a lot to process.
Literally.
So we're talking faster internet, more powerful computers. Sounds expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess that's where the business opportunities come in, right? Someone's got to build all this.
For sure. The metaverse is going to be like a gold rush for the businesses that can crack these technical challenges. And it's not just about the infrastructure. Think about all the new products and services that a virtual world like this would need.
Okay, let's talk business then. What are the big opportunities here?
Well, gaming is the obvious one. We're already seeing glimpses of it with things like Fortnite and Roblox.
Right.
But that's just the very beginning. Forget just playing games. In the metaverse, you could be living in them, building businesses, going to virtual concerts, owning digital land.
Hold up. People are buying virtual land.
Seriously. It's already a multi-million-dollar market.
Wow. Okay. But it's not just games, right?
Nope. The book highlights some really interesting use cases for education, too. Imagine learning biology by shrinking down to the size of a blood cell, traveling through the human body.
Okay. That's way more engaging than reading a textbook.
Right. Or learning history by actually visiting ancient Rome. Virtually, of course.
Sign me up for that.
And then there's entertainment. Forget flat screens. We're talking immersive, 360-degree experiences. Movies, concerts, sporting events. You name it, you'll experience it in a whole new way.
Can't even imagine what a metaverse concert would be like. It'd be like being on stage with the band.
Exactly, and it goes way beyond entertainment, too. The metaverse could completely change how we work. Remote work is already shaking things up, but imagine virtual offices, collaborative workspaces, training simulations that feel as real as being there in person.
Hmm. So we're talking about potentially replacing the physical world in some ways. That's a big leap.
It is a big leap, and that brings us to the societal impact, which is where things get really interesting and maybe even a bit scary. We got to ask ourselves some tough questions like, how will this affect our digital identities? Will our avatars become extensions of ourselves?
That's a good one. What about all the issues we see online, like harassment, misinformation, privacy? Will the metaverse just make those problems worse?
All valid concerns, things we need to address now before the metaverse is everywhere. And then there's the digital divide.
Right.
Will everyone have access to this, or will it just worsen the inequalities that already exist?
So many questions. I'm hearing a lot of potential, but a lot of risks too. Before we go too deep into the societal stuff,
All
I'm
right.
curious, when is all this going to happen?
That's the million-dollar question. The experts don't even agree.
Figures.
But the book makes a really interesting comparison to the adoption of electricity. It wasn't just one big moment, right?
No, I guess not.
It happened in waves. First the tech, then figuring out how to use it, and then slowly it changed everything.
So are we in the early stages of those waves with the metaverse?
I think we are. We see advancements in VR and AR, the rise of virtual worlds, like we said, Fortnite and Roblox, tons of money pouring into development. But it's early. The tech's changing fast, and we're just scratching the surface of what it can do.
Okay, so it's not like we're all going to wake up tomorrow living in the metaverse,
Not quite.
but the seeds are definitely being planted.
For sure. And that's why it's important to understand what it is, what the potential is, good and bad, and how it might actually affect your life. Doesn't matter if you're a business owner or just someone trying to keep up with the latest trends. This is something to pay attention to. It's not just science fiction anymore.
All right, so let's get a bit more specific.
Mm.
What are some of the ways the metaverse is already starting to show up in different industries? Where do we even begin?
Well, what I find fascinating is how it's impacting industries that have kind of resisted going digital, like education and healthcare.
Oh, yeah. People have been talking about online schooling forever, but it's never really taken off.
Yeah.
Same with seeing your doctor virtually. Been around for a while, but hasn't really replaced actually going to the doctor.
Right. And I think the reason is that, flat screens, video calls, they can't capture the richness of real-world interaction.
Right.
The metaverse, that could be different. Imagine going to a virtual lecture, interacting with the professor and other students in real time,
Okay.
or going on a virtual field trip to the Amazon rainforest.
Way better than staring at a screen.
Right. What about healthcare?
Healthcare, yeah. How can the metaverse change things there?
Well, we're already seeing VR and AR being used for training doctors and nurses. But the metaverse could take that to a whole other level. Imagine surgeons practicing complex procedures in a virtual operating room, where they can make mistakes without any real-world consequences.
That makes sense.
Or therapists using virtual reality to treat phobias or PTSD, exposing patients to their fears in a safe, controlled environment.
Wow. Some really incredible possibilities there. It feels like this could democratize access to things like education and healthcare. Make them available to people no matter where they are, how much money they have.
Absolutely. It's about breaking down barriers,
Right.
creating a more equitable world, but we also got to be mindful of the downsides. We can't just embrace the metaverse without thinking about things like we said, data privacy, digital identity, and the potential for it to be misused.
Right. We've got to find that
Yeah.
balance. But let's not get too bogged down in the serious stuff just yet. I want to hear about the fun stuff. What about entertainment?
Oh, get ready to have your mind blown. Metaverse entertainment is going to be on another level. We talked about virtual concerts, but imagine actually being in a virtual stadium with thousands of other fans dancing, singing along, interacting with the performers.
I've seen videos. Yeah, they look incredible.
And the possibilities go way beyond music, too. Think storytelling, interactive movies and TV shows where you can choose your own adventure, or immersive theater where you're not just watching, but you're a part of the performance.
I can't even imagine.
It's going to be wild. But one thing I do wonder about is the cost. VR and AR headsets are pretty expensive right now, and you need a powerful computer to run them. Will the average person be able to afford all of this?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But remember, technology always gets cheaper over time. Look at smartphones, flat-screen TVs. As the metaverse becomes more common, we can expect the cost of hardware and software to come down, making it more accessible to everyone. And who knows, maybe someday we'll all be wearing these lightweight AR glasses that seamlessly blend the virtual and physical worlds.
Oh, that would be incredible. A world where we can just move between real and virtual, experiencing the best of both.
It's a compelling vision.
It is.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The metaverse is still early days. We've got a lot of work to do to get there, but it's definitely a future worth aiming for.
Okay, so we've talked about shopping, work, education, entertainment. Feels like the metaverse is touching almost every part of our lives.
It is, and that's why it's so important to understand it. But before we get too caught up in the specifics, I think we need to step back and talk about the potential impact on society as a whole. This is where things get really interesting, and maybe even a little bit scary.
All right, let's go there. What are the big societal questions we need to be thinking about?
Well, for one thing, this isn't just a new technology, it's a potential paradigm shift. It could totally reshape how we interact with each other, how we experience reality, even how we define ourselves. It's almost like a new frontier of human experience.
Whoa, that's a lot to unpack. So where do we even begin?
I think one of the most pressing questions is how the metaverse will affect our digital identities. As we spend more and more time in these virtual worlds, our avatars become more than just game characters, right? They become representations of ourselves, like digital twins.
So basically, our online personas are going to become even more real.
In a way, yeah. And that raises some interesting questions, like how much control will we have over those avatars? Will we be able to make them look and act like our true selves? Or will they be limited by whatever platform we're using? And how will our digital identities interact with our real-world identities? Will they be separate, or will they start to merge?
Okay, now my head's spinning. This is a lot.
I know, it's a lot to process. And we don't have all the answers yet. The metaverse is still evolving, so it's hard to predict exactly how all of this will play out. But we can look to the past for some clues. Like, remember the early days of the internet?
Yeah, when it was this niche thing for academics and researchers.
Right, and then boom, it exploded. No one could have predicted how much it would change the world.
Changed everything. How we talk to each other, how we shop, how we work, how we think.
Exactly. And I think the metaverse has the potential to be just as transformative, if not more so. So should people be worried? I don't know if that's the right word, but they should be informed.
Informed, yeah.
They should understand what the metaverse is, what it could do, good and bad, and how it might actually affect their lives.
So knowledge is power. The more we understand, the better we'll be able to navigate all of this.
Absolutely. It really is like we're standing at the edge of this brand new world, full of potential, but also who knows what risks are out there.
It's like those old explorers setting sail, right? Heading for the new world, but instead of ships, we've got VR headsets.
Huh. I love that analogy. And speaking of uncharted territory, I think we need to talk about something super important in the metaverse that often gets overlooked. Payments. How we buy and sell stuff in this new world is going to be totally different.
Makes sense. I mean, we're already moving away from cash in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Credit cards, mobile payments,
What?
and cryptocurrency. But those might not work so well in the metaverse, huh?
You got it. We need a payment system that's secure, super efficient, and works globally. And it needs to be able to handle tiny transactions, because in the metaverse, you might be buying virtual items that are worth like fractions of a penny.
Okay, so what's the answer? The book mentioned blockchain. Is that it?
Blockchain could be a game changer here. Think of it like a digital ledger that tracks every single transaction. And because it's decentralized, meaning no single company or government controls it, it's incredibly secure, almost impossible to hack.
So, like a public record of who owns what, but
Yeah.
spread across a ton of computers so no one can mess with it.
Exactly. Perfect for a virtual world where people are constantly buying and selling digital stuff. Plus, it could even change how we think about ownership and commerce. Like, imagine owning a tiny piece of virtual real estate.
Oh, interesting.
Or having decentralized marketplaces where people can buy and sell things directly to each other, no middleman taking a cut.
That sounds pretty radical.
Yeah.
So blockchain is like the key to unlocking the metaverse's economic engine.
It could be, yeah. But it's not just about the tech itself, it's about the economics too. The book really dives into this, and it highlights how games make money now versus how things might work in the metaverse, and they're totally different.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the difference?
Most online games, they rely on in-app purchases, right? You buy virtual currency, items, stuff like that. But platforms like Apple and Google, they take a huge chunk of those transactions,
Yeah, like 30%, right?
sometimes even more. And that's been a big problem for game developers.
It has.
But that model just won't fly in the metaverse. The metaverse is going to be way more open, decentralized. Developers will have more control over their prices. They can find new ways to make money.
So are we talking about like a power shift
Mm.
from the big tech companies to individual creators and businesses?
That's definitely one possibility. The metaverse could level the playing field where anyone with a good idea and the talent to make it happen can actually succeed.
That's pretty exciting. But what about the rules?
Hmm.
Who's going to be in charge of the metaverse? Who's going to make sure it's fair, that it's safe?
Another huge question, and there's a lot of debate about it. Some people think the metaverse should be governed by the community, where users have a say in how things work.
Like a digital democracy.
Exactly. Others think there needs to be some kind of central authority, some oversight to prevent things from getting out of control. After all, the metaverse is going to be vast, complicated. It's going to attract all sorts of people.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
Right. So finding that right balance between letting things be free and open, but also having some rules, that's going to be a huge challenge.
It's like the Wild West out there right now, isn't it? Everyone rushing to stake their claim.
It really is. But the good news is the people who are out there now, they're laying the groundwork. The decisions we make today will shape the metaverse for years to come. We got to think carefully about what kind of world we want to create, and what role technology should play.
So it's not just about the tech. It's about how we use it, the values that we build into it.
Exactly. And that brings us back to why this even matters to our listeners. Like with any new tech, there's a lot of uncertainty around the metaverse. We don't know what it'll look like, how fast it'll grow, or what its ultimate impact will be. But we can learn from history, from the internet.
Very few people saw that coming. How much it would change everything.
I know, right? And I think the metaverse has the potential to be just as transformative, maybe even more. So should people be worried? I don't know if that's the right word, but they should be paying attention.
Informed, you mean?
Informed, yes.
Ah.
Understand what the metaverse is, what it could do, the good and the bad, how it could affect their lives.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah,
So the more we know about the metaverse, the better equipped we'll be to navigate it all.
100%. But enough of the abstract stuff. Let's talk about some real-world examples of how the metaverse is already starting to affect things. Like, have you noticed anything different in the retail world lately?
Oh, for sure. Those virtual fashion shows where you can try on clothes virtually. It's like playing dress up in a video game, but with real clothes.
Exactly. And some brands are creating virtual stores now where you can browse and buy stuff in 3D. Way more immersive than just looking at a website.
And it's not just clothes either. I've seen those virtual showrooms for furniture, for cars, even for houses.
Oh yeah, virtual real estate is exploding right now. People are spending millions on virtual land, thinking it'll be as valuable as real estate if the metaverse takes off.
That blows my mind. It's like the gold rush all over again, but instead of panning for gold, people are buying pixels.
It is kind of wild, right? It's definitely a risky market. But there's no doubt the metaverse is creating all kinds of new opportunities for people, whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur. And it's not just about buying and selling stuff either. Work is changing too.
We talked about virtual offices earlier, but
Mhm.
what are companies actually doing in the metaverse right now?
Well, besides the offices, companies are using it for training, collaboration, even recruiting. Imagine a virtual job fair where you can meet recruiters, learn about different companies, all from home.
That would be amazing. No more traveling, no more printing out a million resumes.
Exactly. And the metaverse could totally change how we onboard new employees. Instead of death by PowerPoint, imagine being in this virtual world, learning about the company, meeting your team, even practicing your skills in a simulation.
So remote work could actually feel less remote.
Exactly. It could help bridge that gap between being physically there and being online. A more connected, collaborative experience.
Okay, so retail, work. What about education? How's the metaverse changing learning?
We touched on virtual field trips, those immersive classrooms, but it goes way beyond that. Imagine learning history by stepping into a virtual version of ancient Rome, or studying biology by shrinking down to the size of a cell and exploring the human body from the inside out.
It's like turning education into a video game.
Yeah.
I bet kids would actually pay attention then.
Right. The metaverse could make learning fun, engaging, hands-on, and it could make education more accessible for everyone, no matter where they are. Think about students in rural communities, in developing countries. They could get the same quality of education as kids in big cities.
That's an amazing thought. It could level the playing field in a way we've never seen before.
It really could. But of course, there are challenges. We need to make sure everyone can actually access the tech and that the content makes sense for different cultures.
It's not as simple as just giving everyone a VR headset and calling it a day.
Definitely not. But I'm optimistic that we can figure this out, and create a metaverse that actually works for everyone.
Okay, so shopping, work, education. We got to talk about the fun stuff. What about entertainment? How's the metaverse changing how we have fun?
Get ready, because this is where things get really wild. We talked about those virtual concerts, but imagine being in a virtual stadium with thousands of other fans, dancing, singing along, even interacting with the band.
I've seen some videos and it's mind-blowing.
Right. It's like being in the front row without having to fight the crowd. And it's not just music. The metaverse is pushing the boundaries of storytelling. Imagine interactive movies and TV shows, choose your own adventure stuff, or immersive theater where you're not just watching, you're part of the action.
I can't even wrap my head around that.
It's going to be amazing. But here's something interesting to think about. Imagine a world where the limitations of the physical world just disappear.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about it. In the metaverse, you can be anyone, do anything, go anywhere. You can fly, breathe underwater, travel to other planets.
So it's like stepping into a fantasy world where the rules of reality just don't apply.
Exactly. The metaverse could give us this freedom to explore new identities, to really use our imaginations, and to experience things that would be impossible in the real world.
It's kind of scary, but also really exciting, like the ultimate escape.
It is, but it also raises some big questions about what it means to be human. If we can be anyone and do anything in the metaverse, does that make our real-world experiences less valuable?
Yeah, that's deep. Will we lose touch with reality if we spend too much time in the metaverse?
It's something to think about, for sure. We need to be careful as we develop this technology. But it's important to remember that the metaverse is just a tool.
Like a hammer. We can build something great or destroy something valuable. Depends on who's using it.
Exactly. It's up to us to decide how we want to use the metaverse, to create a metaverse that's good for everyone, that treats everyone fairly.
Okay, so we've talked about how the metaverse could affect different industries, but what about society as a whole?
That's where things get really interesting because the metaverse isn't just a new technology.
So the metaverse, it's not just a new gadget, right? We're talking about something that could really change how society works, how we see the world, all of that.
It's huge. Think of it like this. We had the printing press, then the internet, and now this. But this time, it's like our very sense of self is going digital.
Okay, now that's both fascinating and a little scary. What are the big social questions we need to think about here?
Well, we were just talking about digital identity, right? The more time we spend in these virtual worlds, our avatars, they become more than just characters in a game.
Right.
They start to represent us in a much deeper way.
So it's not just about like giving your avatar the coolest clothes anymore. It's about creating a whole digital version of yourself, one that might start to feel as real as, your physical self.
Exactly. And that brings up all sorts of questions like, how much control will we actually have over these digital selves?
Oh, right.
Will it be like social media where the platform has a lot of say, or will we truly own our digital identities? And then what happens when those digital identities start to blend with our real lives?
Yeah, that's a bit unsettling.
What if your metaverse reputation affects your job prospects, your relationships, even your access to services in the real world?
We're just starting to grasp all of this, aren't we?
It's early days. It's kind of like when the internet first came out, remember? People creating online identities for the first time.
Yeah.
All that worry about anonymity, privacy, the lines blurring between real life and online life.
We're still dealing with some of that today, even.
Exactly. We're going through it again, but on a much larger scale with the metaverse.
Hopefully we can learn from what happened with the internet, make sure the metaverse developed in a more responsible way.
It's going to take effort from individuals and the companies that are building these platforms. We need to be asking the hard questions about what's right, what's fair, the kind of future we actually want to live in.
Okay, so digital identity is a big one. What other societal impacts should we be thinking about?
Well, one that comes up a lot is inequality. We already have a digital divide. Not everyone has the same access to technology.
And if the metaverse becomes the new place for work, for learning, for hanging out, the people who can't get online are going to be even further behind.
That's right. So for the metaverse to benefit all of humanity, we have to make sure everyone can be a part of it, no matter their income, where they live, or if they have a disability.
So it's not just about building cool tech. It's about building a metaverse that's fair to everyone. That's a big challenge.
It is, and it's all connected to these other questions about who's in charge, what the rules are, who benefits from this new world. Governance, regulation, those are things we can't ignore.
Okay, so we've got identity, inequality. What about relationships? I mean, social media has already changed how we connect with people, but the metaverse, that seems like a whole different level.
It is. It's not just texting or posting updates anymore. In the metaverse, you're actually there with other people, sharing experiences, talking in real time. Could make our connections stronger, but also maybe more shallow.
How so?
Well, think about it. The metaverse makes it easier to connect with anyone who shares your interests, no matter where they are in the world.
Right.
That's amazing for finding your tribe, building deeper relationships with people who really get you.
Mm.
But it could also make it easier to avoid real-world interactions completely, to retreat into these online spaces where everyone agrees with you and everything is perfect, which of course isn't how the real world works.
So the metaverse could make us more connected, but also more isolated. It all depends on how we use it, I guess.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to talk about all this now. While the metaverse is still being built, we need to understand the good and the bad, the potential problems, so we can guide it in the right direction.
Okay, so we've got a lot to think about. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? One big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. The metaverse is making us rethink some really basic ideas, like ownership, for example.
Ownership, okay.
In the real world, it's pretty clear what we own, our house, our clothes,
Right, tangible stuff.
But in the metaverse where everything is digital, it gets really complicated.
Yeah, like what does it actually mean to own a virtual item, a piece of digital land? Is it really yours if you can't touch it? What if the company that created it can just take it away from you?
Big questions. And these are things we're going to have to figure out as the metaverse develops. Because how we define ownership in this new world, it'll affect everything. Our economies, our legal systems, even our own sense of self.
So a lot to unpack here, folks. The metaverse is just getting started. There's so much more to learn, so many questions to answer. But hopefully this deep dive has given you a good overview, a place to start your own exploration.
That's what we were hoping for, because this is more than just a change in technology. It's a societal shift. And it's happening right now. So pay attention, get informed, and get ready for the ride.
That's it for this deep dive into the metaverse. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little mind-blowing. And as always, thanks for listening.
We learned that the metaverse is a powerful tool, one that can make humanity better or worse. It's up to us to use it wisely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning. And remember, the future is what we make it.